With this rapid growth in demand for electricity and energy in general across the kingdom, and the debatable ability of whether Cambodia is able to meet this growing demand, this question highlights some major challenges for the sector. This morning, we will share perspectives from our very knowledgeable panel members, which will help us understand what some of these challenges are and possibly look towards some of the solutions. So, without any further delay, let me introduce the panel members to you, and then we'll get on with our first question. So, on my left, extreme left here, is Mr. Hing Kuntap. Welcome, Mr. Kuntap. Mr. Kuntap has experience in fossil fuels, energy efficiency and conservation, protection of the environment and its renewable energies with the Royal Dutch Shell Group in Cambodia, in France and in Singapore, and with the French National Coal Company in France. He has had a long career within this sector, and he has also been involved with the first inventory of greenhouse gas emissions in Cambodia, the introduction of environmental programs, and been a consultant to the World Bank Rural Electricians Funds. He is currently with Khmer Solar, the first solar company in Cambodia, and holds a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from the University of Texas in Austin, Texas. Thank you. Welcome. And next to me on my extreme left is His Excellency Keo Ratanak. Welcome. His Excellency is the Royal Government of Cambodia's delegate in charge of managing EDC and an advisor to the Prime Minister of Cambodia. He worked at the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy, where he was both Director of the Minister's Cabinet and Deputy Director General of Industry. His Excellency has a Master in International Development and another in Higher Education, and has worked at both Boston University and Royal University of Phnom Penh. Welcome, Excellency. Thank you. On my right, His Excellency Dr. Sok Kavan. Welcome. He is Secretary of State at the Ministry of Mines and Energy. Prior to this appointment, he was the Director General of the Cambodian National Petroleum Authority. He is also a member of the Juris Council of the Office of the Council of Ministers of Cambodia. He received his bachelor degree in Economics and Foreign Affairs from the University of Virginia, and his Juris Doctor from the St. Louis University School of Law. He is currently a member of the Bar Association of the Kingdom of Cambodia and the State of New York in the United States. Thank you for joining us today. And on my far right is Mr. Tony Knowles. Mr. Knowles has been living in Cambodia for, must be over 20 years now. So someone who has very much seen the development in this sector. He is the Director and Founder of SME Renewable Energy Limited, which provides NGO-based business services to rural enterprises. Since 1995, he has dedicated his time working on various aspects of Cambodian economic development in rural regions, including expanding microfinance services. He's a founder of Akhlila Bank, and setting up small and medium business associations, namely the associations for rice milling, brick and tile manufacturing, fish processing and trading, and rural electricity enterprise associations. So as you can see, and I'm sure appreciate, we have a very diverse panel, and one that is steeped in knowledge and experience. So I encourage and urge you to think carefully about your questions so you can access this font of knowledge I have sitting on the stage with me today. So I'm going to start with our first question. And I would like to direct this question to His Excellency Keo Ratanak in the first instance, and secondly to Mr. Tony Knowles in the second instance. So my question is this: what fundamental economic and societal objectives must be taken into account by policymakers when shaping the direction for the future of the energy sector in Cambodia?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Start by quoting institutional economist Douglas North, who once said, development is path dependent. So when we shape our energy and electricity policy, we look at our past historical developments. We look at what we went through. We look at the political and social institutions that govern this country. We look at our natural endowments. We look at our geopolitical position. So all of this give us some sign and signal in terms of our preparedness and expectation. So when we do this, we come up with some key words, something like need access. People need access to electricity, that people need it to be more affordable, that people need it to be a bit more fair, that rural people also want to have power that they can see as being quite fair to them. It's not just the power sector that they're looking after the urban folks. We even look at electricity as a solution to help them raise their dignity, raise their income. Children in the countryside would like to replace kerosene lights with electrical bulbs. A lot of local economies that need to be generated depends on electricity. Look at health centers that need to store life-saving vaccines. Right now they don't have electricity. If they have electricity, then they can save a lot of lives, for example. So these are the basic parameters that we use to shape our electricity. So when we look at access, we look at affordability, we plan something that is large in scale, something that can, given the resources that we have and the time that we have, that we can address these massive challenges in the country. We don't have the luxury of looking at small pockets or certain area at a time. So we take Cambodia as a whole, learning from our past mistakes, accepting and appreciating its history, and acknowledging its current challenges politically, socially, even geopolitically, and plan ourselves in that context and make the best use of what we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. Tony, what's your take on this question? Are you working? Are you online there? Here's mine. Go.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to participate. My comments are an observer, not as a Cambodian, but I've been here for quite a few years, involved in looking at ways to implement development. And I would say my main theme for today in this very short discussion we have is that not to jump ahead and just concentrate on various technologies, whether that be solar or biogas or biodiesel or nuclear or any of the various sources. Before we get to looking at which would be the best choice to make, I think there needs to be a fundamental vision and a consensus of that vision in the community and amongst the citizens themselves. And I think there's a danger as we move so rapidly forward with changing from urban to rural life. There hasn't been very much time to have a full discussion with the people of Battambang to ask them what do they want Battambang to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now. Decisions are being made and consequences are rolling forward, and a variety, we can see the manifestation of that in Phnom Penh, where obviously we have a discontinuity between the number of vehicles and the capacity of the roads. And so there are always these consequences in a very complex mix. So I would say that my main thought would be, as we talk about energy alternatives and options and policies, we should make sure that we've had an adequate consideration of what are the implications. There's no question that having lights on in a small village is an improvement over candles. But when we move forward to how energy is going to be a part of the economic matrix, we don't want to be driven simply because the power company decided to put a line down here, and therefore all the development is going to be somehow drawn to that line as a magnet. I think we need to be careful we take a look at what is the relationship between the choices and decision, not just technical ones, but the populations themselves. If you don't involve the population, at some point it will come back to be a serious problem. You can see how the problems in Thailand, where they've created two different universes, sometimes red shirts, sometimes yellow shirts. It's partly because for 50 years they didn't adequately bring everybody along with some kind of a common understanding and vision. And so we don't want to fall into that trap. Energy is one of those sources that is very important, but I think involving the the local population in these choices should be the starting point before the technical decisions are made.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tony. To give rise for a great deal of thought, and at the same time give a clear message that there's still, I guess, a fair amount of work to be done in terms of getting this kind of dialogue and community, countrywide dialogue happening in this area. If anybody has specific questions on this particular topic, make a note of it now, and that at the end will be an opportunity for you to come back and ask these particular panel members to expand on a thought or something that they're saying. So I think we'll move on to the second question to give the other panel members an opportunity. Laos, Thailand and Vietnam have established renewable energy targets for around 2020, as does Cambodia, I believe. What my question would be is, well, to give context, currently Cambodia receives only 3% of its energy from more environmentally friendly energy sources. What is Cambodia? My question to His Excellency Dr. Sokkavan is, what is Cambodia doing now to reach this target? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. First of all, I'd just like to say that I'm very happy to be part of the panel, to be invited by IDP to be participate in this global alumni convention, and I'm very happy to be able to meet and discuss young, talented Cambodians and foreigners who are now doing great things here in Cambodia in both public and private sector. Regarding the issue of renewable energy, as you pointed out, Cambodia, like all the countries in ASEAN, we have made a commitment, what we call the ASEAN Renewable Energy Commitment, of incorporating renewable energy in our use. And that the commitment is about 20%. We are committed to increase the percentage of renewable energy to 20% by 2020. This is for all ASEAN countries, not just Cambodia. And Cambodia and the Ministry of Mines and Energy, particularly, we do have policy to encourage the usage and the renewable energy projects. At the moment, as the number is relatively low, as you pointed out, it's 3%. But we have some interesting new projects coming up. As far as I've been told is that by the first half of this year, we will have a solar power project coming online, connected to the national grid, about 10 megawatt. The ministry and BC are working on that at the moment, and that will significantly contribute to the amount of renewable energy we currently have. Yes. If you think about the number 3%, domestic energy capacity we have now is about 1,500 megawatt, on top of about 500 megawatt import from our neighboring countries. So 3% of 1,500 megawatt, that's, roughly about 45 megawatt. And if you factor in that we will have this year put in additional 10 megawatt in solar power, and on top of that we have other projects coming online regarding the biofuel. So I think we will contribute significantly to meeting our target, our commitment of 20%. Yeah.
Thank you for being able to answer. Petroleum reserves, I understand, are very small scale, and there's quite a lot of money being spent on exploration. Will this extraction make any significant impact on economic growth or on meeting these targets? That we've heard a lot in the paper about petroleum exploration. Where do you see it falling within these targets?
Petroleum is, I think, it's another potential source of an important potential source of energy that we need to really carefully consider. I think as a country in growing economies, we need reliable, cheap source of energy. Yeah? And reliable meaning the most reliable source of energy is energy that we have ourselves, domestic energy. Yeah? So, and petroleum and gas, gas for example, we can use that to power gas-fired power plant that can generate clean energy. At the moment, our petroleum industry is still at its infancy stage. A lot of attention has been given since Chevron have made the announcement of the discovery in the early 2004. The discovery proved to be commercial. Chevron later announced it to be commercial. That means it could be developed. But it is a small marginal field. Yes? And the issue of commerciality also depends on the price of, yes, so commerciality is implied that the amount of petroleum under the ground that can be extracted given the cost of development, given the revenue generated, and that's factored in the price and other issues. So I think at the moment we have made these small discoveries, but the potential doesn't seem to point it out that it will be overly commercial. We are continue to discuss with the contractor at the moment. Chevron has already, as you know, subsequently sold out of Cambodia. Also in Vietnam and Thailand, they are now, in Vietnam they are also selling out. So it's not just an issue of Cambodia, it's a strategy of Chevron, of regional strategy. So I think the petroleum issue is still a bit uncertain as to when and we will be able to produce our own oil and gas. But I think another area that we need to focus on is the overlapping trade area with Thailand. I think the potential there.
That's great. Thank you for that. Let's have a look at that. I'd like to actually ask His Excellency Rodnak to make a comment on that. He mentioned something to me quietly, and I think that the audience would find this valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to give the audience a little bit of context in terms of the renewable target, say, with reference to Laos and Thailand. Every year, the heads of ASEAN public utility meet to discuss issues that are common to ASEAN. So each nation, including Cambodia, will present its own case, its current development, we listen to the development of other 9 nations, and try to look at all challenges as a group, as an ASEAN family. Now, years after year, ASEAN heads of utilities have not been able to see any sign that ASEAN as a whole will be able to move to fulfill its 15% renewable commitment in its generation mix. And partly it's because if you look at the strict definition of renewable, each nation of the 10 ASEAN members would not be qualified to take into account things like hydro, large hydro. Now, micro hydro can be a good candidate for renewable in a strict sense, because some of the argument is that if you include large hydro in the generation mix, there are environmental costs to large hydro scheme which shouldn't be taken into account. But the heads of the ASEAN utility, the 10 of us, after reviewing all of our countries' endowments, natural endowment, and the way forward and our potential, we all agreed that in order for ASEAN to be able to meet its 15% renewable energy target, we have to include hydro as renewable. And that has been agreed already. That has been the normal discussion the last 3 years. In the last meeting in Malaysia, ASEAN Happo, the ASEAN Head of Public Utility, made its commitment that this is going to be ASEAN benchmark. Now, you look at Thailand, they have ethanol, they have gasohol, they have a few other things. Look at Laos, the renewable target is mainly large-scale hydro. So whether it's something that it is a blessing, the audience can judge for yourself. I'm pretty sure environmentalists would not like it. But that's the nature of ASEAN discussion as of now. Cambodia also is bringing ourselves in alignment with ASEAN benchmarks. My proposal, when I went to ASEAN meeting a number of years ago, I put forward a proposal in order to try to bring down the CO2 footprint. ASEAN can benefit by doing the ASEAN power grid. And that has been on the table for the last 10 years. But the problem with regulations, with regulatory constraints, national sovereignty issue with fiscal regime that have to harmonize across nations, geography, island countries and countries that are not islands. So I propose that if we can do ASEAN power grid, even by dividing to ASEAN into sub-regions, say Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Myanmar can be connected to China, for example. If we could do that, we could do our power trade, we could pool our energy together and reduce the need to exploit the natural resources that we don't have to. But again, this issue has been on the table for very many years. And the 10 ASEAN countries have not been able to overcome the regulatory constraints, technical constraints, as well as the fiscal constraints. If you want to invest in Cambodia and bring down the Thailand, you have to harmonize your fiscal regimes. You don't have double taxation. That would not bring investment. Things like that. If you have power plant in Cambodia, you have to make sure that the technical standard fits that of Thailand, and the regulatory regime of both nations must be harmonized. And that's not easy to do. So I want to give you some context to what Jill just raised. So it's not just like 10%, 50%, 20% on the paper, but in what context this is raised and discussed. Just one final comment with regard to what Kavan was saying. EDC has been watching the development of oil and gas exploration very closely. We have been doing it for many, many years. Because we have not seen any good sign that this is good to go anywhere, we are not able to take this into account into the plan. We have to know in advance in what time frame gas or oil can be brought online. We will have to know at what cost it will have to give to us and in what quantity. In the absence of such basic parameters, utility like EDC is not in a position to do the planning. And therefore, we will take it as not certain and try to bring the other factor into play in order to address the immediate needs of Cambodia. Everywhere I go, people tell me they need power that is less than 1,000 million per kilowatt hour. Everywhere I go, they want power in the countryside to be not far different from the power price in Phnom Penh. So these are the voices of the people. And I have to fulfill these voices. I have to make sure that EDC, the way we plan, the way we mobilize our resources, the way we address challenges will meet the expectation of the people out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Hin Kuntab, as he is working for Khmer Solar. Cambodia has strong untapped potential for the uptake of greener energy sources, solar in particular. What do you see is the major challenge in solar energy area?
The introduction made by His Excellency Kairavanak and the introduction made by my colleague Tony Nervous are very good already as the basis for discussion. For myself, a private company must earn, must have profit, a reasonable profit. This is a must. If we don't have that, you cannot grow, you cannot go on as sustainable. As I saw it, Cambodia is an independent country, but Cambodia must also be have solidarity with other countries as well. And we are an independent country, and we have the right not to follow the other. We have the first priority for us is to defend our interests and the interests of the Cambodian population and the whole in Cambodia.
So if we're looking at the interests of the Cambodian population and we're looking at the ways to possibly diversify our sources,
yes.
Where do you see is the role of solar in that?
Oh, solar can be, for example, in some remote places, like in the old days, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, somebody he made a lot of bridges in small remote places, and to provide light to that bridge, the most economical way was solar system. But because this is Cambodia, we have a lot of problems linked to that installation. A lot of people stolen the battery, stolen the solar panel and things like that. And we have a big issue on that. But solar system is quite flexible, and thanks to the international community who help Cambodian population, they have the public school in a remote area, clinic or health center in rural zone have access to electricity thanks to solar. This is the most technologically least cost option.
That's really interesting, and I must say that from someone sitting from a position of total ignorance, I've always been told, if I listen to the media, that solar is one of our cheaper options.
Technologically, least cost option.
Least cost option, exactly. So, building on that theme and looking at the ways in which we can get power to the poor, my understanding is that the EDC has helped install nearly 50,000 solar home systems to the poor people. I mean, that's got to be a pretty significant statistic that I think many Cambodians, the population certainly don't know about. That's pretty exciting to see that there is this one area that's so highly cost effective that in fact already is being rolled out into those poorer communities. So that's really interesting. Would you have a comment on that?
Yes, of course. This is a kind of communication issue that I said.
Right.
Yes. Cambodian society in general, parents to children, at school teacher to student, at pagoda, the big monk to civilian, always one-way communication, not a two-way, no exchange. You don't ask question. This is our bad habit. We have to modify this peacefully within each family, at school, in pagoda, and things like that. And we don't understand the word education very well. We don't understand it. We get confused between education in Cambodian, it's been uproom. We confused by instruction. So many parents in Cambodia, I know that because I have an NGO financed by myself and my family, and I discover that many parents don't understand what does that mean education. They don't take care of it, you see. And many population in Cambodia does not understand that. The teacher at school also.
Thank you for that, and I really appreciate that because, and His Excellency Rattanam talking about when we look at policy going forward, communication and dialogue is going to be critical in terms of creating and developing sustainable and effective policy. So thank you for bringing us back to the fact that it's fundamental communication and dialogue. Thank you.
Very important.
Yes, I agree. A very, very important point. So I'm very mindful of the time, and I certainly want to give the audience time to contribute and ask some questions of this panel. So I'll end on a final question where I will ask each of the panel members, please, if they, let me just find my question. I'd like them each to give us as it can be as higher perspective or as a very low basic one. What do they consider or view as the most pressing issue facing the industry right now today, from their perspective? What would they view as the single most pressing issue facing the industry today? Tony, we may start with you. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hand it back. Pass the
I don't know, I
mic.
tried to turn it on. Of course, we could spend 2 or 3 days going into detail and all the aspects, but I'd like to make the point that energy by itself isn't the goal. It has many uses and it can have many impacts, but and even if you concentrate just on producing energy, you will have to ask the question, well, once you've produced it and the companies providing it, whether they be public companies or private companies, have to make a profit or have to at least be able to pay for their investment. That means that the question of the technology is really not as critical. It's an income question. People will use more electricity if they have money in their pocket to purchase it. In the rural villages that I've had experience with, people would turn off the lights when they turn on the television because the cost of energy is such that they can only afford a certain amount. So this is really an income problem as well as a technological problem. And so then it poses the question, well, what kind of an economy and how can we improve the distribution of the income in those communities so that then it'll balance in the affordability of the realities of energy. So I think we have to remember that just setting goals and targets is not so difficult. The Prime Minister here 3 or 4 years ago announced that we're going to have 1 million tons of rice to export by 2015. Well, we got about 450,000. Now, it's not a wrong or bad thing to set a goal, but it's not a simple thing to just set a goal and then achieve that goal, because there are many, many circumstances, internal and external, that will determine the final outcome. So I think we'd be cautious about just putting our hopes in a number without evaluating the underlying factors.
In the oil and gas sector, I think the most pressing issue is energy security. I think most of us now enjoy, I think, good reliable services in electricity. We have readily available petrol, diesel, but we need to be mindful that behind those there's constant work to make sure those products or those services are being provided. So to have security in energy, meaning, for example, if there's a supply shock or price shock, for example, or there's a global crisis somewhere, Cambodia, as we rely on importing 100% of our energy at the moment, meaning petrol and diesel. So we need to I think, pay more attention and think more carefully how do we ensure security, reliability in the supply and the sources. Because as a growing country, we cannot afford to have an interruption. And there will be, as you see in the past, we see the petrol crisis in the US in the 70s. There will be shocks, there will be issues, but we need to now start to pay attention because the stake is high enough.
It's fascinating. From a complete security, is that the same thing as energy independence? Is energy security equal energy independence?
I think it can be coincided but not the same thing. I think, for example, the United States for a long time, we could say the US is energy secure because they have so many supply, but they are not independent because they import a lot of their energy. But now the situation is not the same. Yeah? Now they are secure and independent. They can produce their own energy, yeah? Grow their own oil and gas.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
And what you said, EDC has made a number of $1 million every year in terms of grants to procure cheap solar systems for the poor, because these are the people who are in remote areas. Sometimes they live on the Talisana lake, sometimes they are off into the mountainous area. It will take years for the grid to extend to them. So I think as a matter of transition, something can be provided. Now, in terms of the barriers, the pressing issue for the industry, we have some 3 keywords that we must fulfill, and these are massive challenges. A, access. We still have millions of homes in Cambodia who don't have good access to electricity. People live in the dark. Some people who are using electricity at a rate of 3,500 reals per kilowatt hour, that's unacceptable. We must be doing something to be able to save them from this terrible burden. Affordability comes with the equity issue, the urban, rural folks, and we start to address this issue starting from March this year. Anyone connected to grid, to EDC grid system, will see their tariff reduced from more than 1,000 reals to 800 reals per kilowatt hour, and for 480 real for those who are using less than 10 kilowatt hours, the real poor of the poor. On top of this issue, we must invest much more money to make sure our grid system is becoming more and more reliable. Because industry, modern economies, which are becoming more and more knowledge-based, all depend on reliable supply of energy, of electricity. You don't have power cut 20 times a day. That is not good for industry. And industry creates jobs, creates income, and it will address the issue of youth employment, for example. So these are the basic issues that we will have to address. And of course, it's easier than that, because to be able to make EDC more reliable, the grid more reliable, EDC would have to invest another $1 billion in the next 5 years. And $1 billion is not simple. On time, spend $2 billion, it was a huge amount. And to go from now to the next $1 billion, we have to raise funding. That will take some time, that will take some good policy, but also it will also take a lot of things in addition to this. Now, within this context, we must be smart in using our own natural resources endowments and supplement with something that we don't have. EDC has been working very closely with Vietnam, Thailand, and Laos to make sure that we can buy some of the cheap power from them on a strategic basis and still power our economy, waiting for our large resources to come online. And to do this, we are able to address some of the basic questions I raised earlier on access, affordability, and reliability, and increasing our energy independence over time. I'm proud to say that in 2008, we depend on Vietnam import almost 80%. Today, we depend on Vietnam less than 15%.
It's impressive statistics.
And is that energy independence? Is it something? I think we are trying towards that. We are striving towards that direction. But we also challenge the extra, the super nationalistic feeling of some politicians who say we don't have to be connected to Vietnam Thailand. That is stupid economically, that is stupid politically, because I think nations stand to gain by working together, but we must work together knowing in mind that we have to be more strategic. We don't depend on them, but if something we can take from them and add to what we don't have, help our economy grow, help our youth create more employment, that is something we must do. And I think that is exactly what EDC was doing.
Great, thank you very much. And our final panelist, the single pressing issue facing the industry today, from your perspective. I think it's on.
Hello. Yeah. I think in the short-term basis, we need cheap, as His Excellency Karotanan said, we need cheap and reliable energy for the population of Cambodia, and we need this for the industry and transportation in Cambodia, for the industry to be competitive on the international scale at the same time. We need that in the short term. I don't think that we have, unless we have big catastrophe, world catastrophe, not directly made by Cambodia, but Cambodia, like in the 1960s, suffered from the American and Vietnamese war.
So thank you.
Yeah, we suffer so much up till now, and we suffer so much. And I lived during that period.
So your one single pressing issue is cheap and available.
Cheap, available, and friendly, environmentally friendly. And on the environmental friendly, we have to be solidar. We must be solidaire. This is French wording for solidarity. We must be solidar with some other nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. But I'd now like to. We have gone over time, but we do have another 15 minutes maximum, or let's say 10, 12 minutes. So please, could we have some questions up front? If you could keep your questions very.
We have to do to improve or to attract foreign investment in the energy sector?
Who would like to answer that?
We have been able to work very hard to attract financing from our development partners, usually through concessionary lending. We talk about the Asian Development Bank, KW Germany, JICA, JBIC Japan. AFB recently came to that sector as well from France. Exim Bank China, and perhaps we're looking forward to the newly created the AIIB, which is under the Chinese initiative, to expand our funding mobilization. As I said, just to look at the transmission line and the sub-transmission line for the next 5 years, if we could have $1 billion in our hand, we could do a lot more to make sure our system is expanding fast enough to reach out to areas that are not covered, as well as to make sure that we can increase the reliability of the grid. Now, when it comes to generation, the government has liberalized generation market for years. It has not invested a single dollar for many decades already in generation, because the government believes that we should crowd out private investment. This area, private sector can have an active role and can have a complementary role. We don't have to do that. But what needs to be done in area transmission, usually we invest a bit more heavily than generation, and that is half-half. We have funding from the government through EDC. Every year EDC invests more than $100 billion from our own envelope, budget envelope. In addition to that, we raise additional financing from our development partners. And if in situations where we don't have any more funding from these areas, then we have to go for the BOT. Why we open only half to private investment when they come to grid development? Because it would be too costly for private funding to go to the grid. Why Vietnam has been able to have low energy costs? A lot of things were done in the Soviet era, and mostly grant from the Soviet Union. Second, a lot of this hydro and transmission line already expired their commercial line, now it's more like bonus for them. But also the state was heavy-handed in investing in grid development. Imagine funding that we use, they take from China Exim Bank at 2% interest rate or 3%. And if you go to the private market, it raises the funding at 7-8%. That is a huge cost to do it. Now we are under extreme political and social pressure to bring the tariff down. And that is something half-half. Government half, private sector half. Generation fully to the private sector. We think the private sector can play a role in, and we leave it to them. Distribution is again half-half. We are mobilizing funding from various sources, but half-half as well. Renewable energy, that I think people are, this is the sexy word of the day. It's especially after the Paris Summit. If you look at the IEA, the International Energy Agency statistics, to commit planet Earth to keeping temperature increase below 2 degrees Celsius, it would need something like 80% renewables in the generation mix by 2050. And that would require 44 trillion US dollars. Now that is going to be a tall order. Cambodia is not in a position to do much because of our fiscal position right now and the many priorities we have, social priorities we still have. But we are looking at every opportunity to see whether we can bring in renewable like solar. And at IDP initiative, like actually Sokawan just said, at IDP initiative, we are going to try to have a pilot, a solar farm pilot case in Springwing, Swaiding, 10 megawatt, to see whether there is something that can be learned from it. And if that goes well, then we can expand. Now, solar panels, people in the industry know it has its own cost, it has its own challenges. Every proposal we have received to date is more than 12 cents at the solar farm. That is very costly. It's difficult for us to absorb the cost. Let's see when the bidding in the next, we're going to float the bid very soon. So you can spread what's around. They're more than welcome to participate. That's the BOO on a BOO basis, build, own and operate. And let's see what we can learn. If it is good, as I said, EDC will further expand. We're also exploring aggressively biomass. We are committed to anyone who burn the rubbish in Phnom Penh and sell the power to us if the price is at a level that we can absorb. We are committed. We have been buying excess energy from sugarcane plantation. So EDC is also buying power from rice husk. There's the Rice Miller Association in Banabong, and they have a lot of rice husks that they're going to burn into to mill their rice, and additional the excess energy can be sold to them. And they're more than welcome. We are open, and we make paperwork extremely minimal to make sure that there are no barriers to investment into this renewable energy. And on this public forum, I can announce that EDC is corruption-free when it comes to that. If you have good investor you want to bring to EDC, you can rest assured that bureaucracy is very, very minimal, and you can be sure that there is no under-table money when it comes to this. Thank you.
That's really interesting. You wanted to make a quick comment on that. How can we attract foreign investment?
Just quickly, investors, when they come to invest in a country, they look for mainly two things. Yeah? One is good fiscal policy, meaning lower tax, example, lower government sharing, etc., etc. And they look for good geological potential. Yes, low geological risk. So what we need to do in that two areas, we need to improve make it more certain our fiscal regime with respect to the petroleum industry. We need to open up our country to more exploration, so there's more data to lower the geological risk. Yeah. And third, I think we need higher oil prices.
Thank you. Do we have any
month in the news they talked about Cambodia exploring with Russia about nuclear energy. I'm just wondering, what is the potential of nuclear energy here in Cambodia? Is it something that we're committed to, or is it something we're exploring, and what would be the challenges of implementing nuclear energy?
Thank you for asking that.
The policy right in Cambodia is very much open to all options to see whether technology can provide any new benefits to our nation. If indeed it can provide new benefits, then we're more than willing to explore. Realistically, from my personal perspective, again, it's not the IGC perspective, but my personal perspective in the field, I do not believe that Cambodia can take advantage of nuclear energy at this stage. Because we are a small nation, very small market size, we don't have the human resources to deliver this, not to mention a whole bunch of other things. If you look at nuclear reactor, say a simple one at, let's say 1,200 megawatt per reactor. Now our grid system cannot absorb any cold boiler more than 300 megawatt at this stage. You can think for yourself. Can we put something like that? I read, when I was coming here, I read a little bit of the report by Switching On, Cambodia Path to Sustainable Energy Security, the Mekong Study Partner. To me, it's a good reading. It's more than 10 pages. It's fun to read, but I don't think it makes much of a sense because it's highly simplistic. Things like we can put 350 megawatt of solar into our system. I don't know what technical guidance that the group has, but certainly not possible. We are a grid of, at this stage, 950 megawatt. Can we inject 350 megawatt intermittent solar energy into the grid? I don't think that any nation would do that. But it's fun to read. I encourage you to read, but it's fun. But certainly it's too simplistic for me. Thank you.
You know, there is a grand increase in building hydropower dam in Cambodia, as we really need cheap energy for our economy, especially we are industrializing the economy. But as you may know, when Chinese investors come to Cambodia to build a power dam, the hydropower dam, we will always hear about the environmental impact that lead to negative reports from the media, especially.
What is your question?
Yeah, my question is, how does the government balance the growing demand of energy and the environment, the negative impacts on environment, especially from Chinese companies?
Again, go back to the national needs and the needs of the people. In the ideal world, we could have electricity that would be free and given by God, but we know that's not happening. And in the early days of the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, even the United States had more than 10,000 dams across the nation. Well, some of them are being destroyed, that they found to be no good anymore. But then how the nation evolved over time. In Cambodia, just like any nation on earth these days, any hydro project is proposed, you draw some opposition. It's not only the Chinese in Cambodia. If the Americans were to do that in Cambodia, it would be the same. There will be some opposition, and some of them are very valid opposition. We must recognize that. So what happened? We allowed the process to take its course. Study usually was carried out for a number of years, and then consultation was widespread. And what's unfortunate in some circumstances in Cambodia, some of the things that can be politically instigated. For example, in Lower Sesan area, when the study team did the study, they take the census, how many families were to be affected, and consult with the people, the house and all this, to go back in 2 years' time after the project is signed and financing is immobilized, to see the number of families increase in multiples. I could swear to God that this is happening. Now, the cost-benefit analysis is done all the time. The Russian, the Chinese have proposed the development of some hydropower project on the Mekong Instant Trial. The Prime Minister has rejected, we in the people of the state have rejected because they do not believe that Cambodia needs something on the Mekong. We don't need it.
1 minute before, unfortunately, we have to call the close. But I would like you to finish.
Okay.
That you're
And
thinking.
that is a clear indication to you that when something is that sensitive, we don't. My Prime Minister has told us many times that he hoped that in his entire lifetime, he will not touch anything on the Mekong. And I support that position. We don't do like Laos, we don't like the Chinese, and certainly we don't want to do like the Thais, who are planning to divert Mekong water into their rice field. That is in breach of the protocol in the Mekong River, by the Mekong River Commission. Now, Radio Free Asia, look around. Thank you.
Thank you. We have such a wealth of knowledge on the stage at one point. It's a shame we don't have another hour. But I would like to thank very much His Excellency Keo Rothanak,